I'm done. That's what she said. Not loud, not angry, just flat. Like someone closing a book they never planned to finish. I remember staring at her, waiting, almost expecting a punchline, a smirk, a laugh, something. But there was nothing. Just her. Standing there. Already halfway out of the life we built. And the craziest part? I didn't ask why. Because I already knew. Not from what she said, but from what she stopped saying. The late-night texts that suddenly had passwords. The work meetings that smelled like cologne I didn't own. The way she started smiling at her phone. But never at me. I noticed everything. I just didn't react. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't need to be chased. It waits. And when it's ready, it walks right into your house, sits at your table, smiles in your face, and shakes your hand like a friend. 3 days later, I invited him over. Breakfast. He arrived early. Of course he did. People like him always do. Confident, comfortable, unaware. I watched him through the window before opening the door. Relaxed posture, easy smile. The kind of man who thinks he belongs anywhere he stands, even in another man's home, even in another man's life. I opened the door. "Hey, man," he said, like we were old friends. I smiled. "Glad you could make it." And just like that, he walked in. No hesitation, no suspicion. Just straight into the trap he didn't know existed. The kitchen smelled like coffee and fried eggs. Simple, normal, safe. That was important. Because nothing scares a guilty person more than calm. He sat across from me, scrolling through his phone, tapping away like the world owed him attention. I poured him coffee. Black, no sugar. And I already knew how he took it. He looked up, surprised. "Damn, you remembered?" I held his gaze just long enough. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I remember everything." He chuckled. Didn't catch it, not yet. We started eating, small talk, work, traffic, random nonsense, the kind of conversation people have when nothing's wrong. Except everything was, and I could feel it building, that quiet pressure in the air, like a storm waiting for permission. He kept talking, laughing, relaxed. Meanwhile, I was studying him. Every movement, every blink, every careless word. This was the man who thought I was asleep. The man who sat in my house, after leaving my wife's bed. And still I didn't raise my voice. Didn't clench my fists. Didn't break. Because revenge isn't chaos, it's precision. Halfway through the meal, I placed my phone on the table, face down, right between us. He glanced at it, just for a second, but I saw it. That flicker, that tiny shift in his eyes. Instinct, guilt always recognizes danger before the mind does. He looked back up, forced a smile. "So, what's this about?" I leaned back in my chair, calm, controlled, and for the first time since he walked in, I let the silence sit, heavy, uncomfortable, unavoidable. Then I spoke. "Eat," I said. "You'll need the energy." He laughed again, but this time, it didn't sound the same. And just like that, the game had started, and a phone, left face up on the kitchen counter. She was in the shower. I remember that clearly, the steady sound of water hitting tile, the faint hum of the extractor fan. Normal sounds, safe sounds, the kind of sounds that should have meant nothing. But her phone buzz, once, then again. I wasn't even trying to look. That's the part that stays with you. The truth rarely comes when you're searching for it. It slips in quietly when your guard is down. The screen lit up. A message preview. Just a few words. "Last night was worth the risk." I froze. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I did. There are moments in life where your brain gives you an out, a chance to misinterpret, to rationalize, to protect yourself. That wasn't one of those moments. My hand moved before I could stop it. I picked up the phone. No lock. That was her first mistake. Or maybe she'd just gotten too comfortable, too confident, too careless. The messages were already open. A thread pinned at the top. His name wasn't saved with anything suspicious, just a name I recognized. A name that made my stomach drop in a slow, controlled way. Not a stranger, not some random guy, someone familiar, someone who had been in my house, someone who had shaken my hand, someone who had looked me in the eye and smiled. I stared at the screen. Then I started reading. Message after message. Scrolled slowly, methodically, no rush, because somewhere deep down, I already knew rushing would mean reacting, and reacting would mean losing control. And I wasn't going to lose control. Not now. Not after this. Their conversations weren't even subtle. That was the worst part. They didn't speak like people hiding something. They spoke like people who believed they'd gotten away with it. Jokes, inside references, memories, plans. I saw dates, times, locations, every late meeting, every girls' night, every moment she told me she was too tired. It was all there, documented, clean, undeniable. There were voice notes, too. I hesitated before pressing play. For a second, I considered putting the phone down, pretending I hadn't seen anything, walking away before the damage became permanent. But curiosity isn't the right word. It was something colder than that. Something sharper. I pressed play. Her voice filled the room. Soft, warm, intimate. A version of her I hadn't heard in a long time. She laughed. Then she said his name. Not mine. His. I stopped the audio. Not because I couldn't handle it, but because I didn't need to hear more. I already had enough. There were photos, too. Nothing explicit, but enough. Angles, lighting, context. The kind of images that don't show everything, but confirm everything. I exhaled slowly, still no anger, no shouting, no shaking hands. Just quiet. That's when it hit me. Not the betrayal, not the humiliation, but the realization. I wasn't feeling what I was supposed to feel. No rage, no heartbreak, no collapse, just clarity. Cold, precise clarity. I placed the phone back exactly where I found it. Same position, same angle, screen off, like nothing had happened. The shower was still running. She was still inside, unaware. I walked to the sink and poured myself a glass of water, took a sip, set it down, and looked at my reflection in the window. For a moment, I didn't recognize the man staring back. Not because he looked different, but because he felt different. Something had shifted. Something fundamental. That was the moment. The exact moment. Not when I saw the messages, not when I heard her voice, but right there, standing in silence, holding everything in. Yet that was the moment. They thought they were careful. They weren't being watched. I didn't confront her. That's what most people would expect. A fight, a scene, accusations thrown across the room like broken glass. But I did nothing. At least, nothing visible. That night I asked how her day was. She smiled, said it was long. I nodded, told her mine was fine. We ate dinner, watched TV, went to bed. Normal. Painfully normal. And that's when the real shift began. I stopped reacting. Not just to her, to everything. Her late replies didn't question them. Her sudden plans encouraged them. Her distance matched it. But underneath that calm, I was watching everything. Patterns started forming almost immediately. She had routines. Everyone does. You just don't notice them until you're looking. Same days she'd stay late. Yeah, same time her phone would go silent. Same excuses, recycled with minor changes. It was almost impressive. Almost. I started keeping track, not on paper, not anywhere obvious. In my head, dates, times, durations, little details most people would ignore. The way she dressed on certain nights, the slight hesitation before answering simple questions, the way she smiled at her phone, then flipped it over when I walked in. It all added up, and the more I watched, the clearer it became. They thought they were being careful, but they weren't being watched. That was their mistake. I adjusted my schedule, subtly, left work earlier some days, came home later on others, tested variables, cross-checked stories. Every lie she told, I let it pass. Not because I believed it, but because I wanted more data, more certainty, more control. Emotionally, something else was happening too, or rather, not happening. I wasn't hurting, at least not in the way I expected. It was like someone had turned the volume down on my feelings. Everything muted, distant, manageable. She laughed one night at something on her phone, really laughed. And I just watched her, studied her, like she was a stranger I was trying to understand. Not the woman I married, not the woman I thought I knew, just a subject. That's when I realized something important. This wasn't about them anymore. Not entirely. It was about control. And I had it, because they didn't know that I knew, and that made all the difference. I started noticing him too, not directly, not yet, but through her. The way she mentioned his name in passing, casually, carefully, too carefully. Yet the kind of careful that only exists when something is being hidden. I paid attention, stored everything, connected dots they didn't even realize they were leaving behind. Days turned into a quiet routine of observation. No confrontation, no mistakes, no emotion, just patience. Cold, deliberate patience. Because revenge, the kind that lasts, isn't built in anger. It's built in silence. And by the time I was done watching, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't just going to react to what they did. I was going to decide what happened next. Like he belonged in my life, like he hadn't been sneaking into my house when I wasn't looking. "Morning," I said calmly. "Morning, what's up?" I glanced at her. She was staring at the floor now, couldn't even look at the phone. "I was thinking," I said, "why don't you come over for breakfast?" Pause, a small one, but I heard it. "Breakfast?" "Yeah, today." Another pause, longer this time. His instincts were kicking in. Something felt off, but not enough. Not yet. Yeah, sure," he said. "What time?" I smiled. "Now." The moment I ended the call, silence took over the room. Not normal silence, the kind that presses against your chest. She finally spoke. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer immediately. I walked to the fridge, opened it. Eggs, bacon, butter, simple, ordinary, perfect. "I'm making breakfast," I said. You're acting strange." I chuckled under my breath. Strange. I turned to look at her. Or different. She shook her head. "This isn't funny. I'm not joking." That's when she realized something important. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't asking questions.
I was calm, and calm is worse. "Do you know something?" she asked. There it was, the question, the one she'd been holding back. I cracked an egg into a bowl, watched the yolk settle. "Know what?" Her breathing changed, slightly faster now. "You're scaring me." I looked up, met her eyes. Good. That word hit harder than any scream ever could. I started cooking. Slow, deliberate, every movement controlled. Butter melting in the pan, the soft sizzle of bacon, the smell filling the room, normal, so painfully normal. "You can stop this," she said quietly. "Stop what?" This, whatever this is." I flipped the bacon. Perfect timing. "Why would I?" She stepped closer, lowered her voice. "Because something's wrong." I nodded. "You're right." She swallowed. "Then talk to me." I finally turned fully toward her, and for a moment, I let the mask slip. Just a little. "I am talking," I said. "You're just not listening." Her eyes widened, because now she knew. Not everything, but enough. The knock came sooner than expected. 3 sharp taps on the door. We both froze. I turned off the stove, wiped my hands slowly on a towel, and smiled. "Perfect timing," I said. She grabbed my arm. "Please." Her voice cracked. "Don't do this." I looked down at her hand, then back at her face. "You already did." Another knock, louder this time, impatient. I walked to the door, each step measured, each second stretching longer than it should. And just before I reached for the handle, I paused. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to feel it. That moment. Right before everything breaks. I glanced back at her. She looked like she might collapse. Tears already forming. Regret finally catching up. Too late. My hand touched the handle, and I whispered, almost to myself, "This is where the truth walks in." The moment didn't explode. It unfolded, slowly, like something inevitable. He was halfway through the second cup of coffee when I placed the phone on the table between us. Not mine, hers. His smile didn't disappear immediately. That's what made it almost fascinating to watch. There was a delay, a fraction of a second where his brain tried to catch up with what his eyes were seeing. Then it happened. A flicker, confusion, then recognition, then something darker. Fear. "What's this?" he asked, forcing a chuckle that came out thinner than he expected. I didn't answer right away. I just leaned back in my chair, watching him the same way I had watched him laugh 10 minutes ago. Carefully, patiently. "You tell me," I said. He hesitated before picking it up. His fingers weren't as steady now. The screen lit up instantly. No password. And because I already unlocked it. Because I had already seen everything. Every message. Every late-night whisper typed in glowing text. Every "I miss you" sent while I was in the next room. Every lie wrapped in affection that wasn't meant for me. His eyes scanned the screen. Once. Twice. His jaw tightened. That's not what it looks like," he said, too quickly. There it was. The line everyone uses when the truth is sitting right in front of them. I let out a quiet breath, not a sigh, not frustration, just acknowledgement. "You came into my house," I said calmly, "sat at my table, ate my food." I leaned forward slightly, and smiled at me. Silence. Heavy, thick, suffocating. He tried to speak again, but the words tangled somewhere between his throat and his pride. "I didn't," he started. "You did," I cut in. Not louder, just sharper. That was enough. His shoulders dropped just a little, and in that moment something shifted. Not in him, in me, because I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the way people expect. There was no fire left to burn, only clarity. You know what the worst part is? I continued, my voice steady. It's not even the betrayal. He looked up, confused. It's the disrespect, I said. The idea that I wouldn't notice, that I wouldn't know, that I was... what? Blind. He said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. I reached across the table, took the phone from his hand, and stood up. The chair scraped softly against the floor. You can finish your breakfast, I added, almost casually. Wouldn't want it to go to waste. That hit him harder than anything else. Not shouting, not insults, just indifference. Because in that moment, he understood something he hadn't expected. This wasn't a confrontation. This was a conclusion. He didn't finish the food. Of course he didn't. No one does. Not when the illusion shatters that cleanly. I walked out of the kitchen without looking back, but I could feel it. The weight of his silence following me down the hallway. The kind of silence that screams louder than any argument. In the bedroom, she was still there, sitting on the edge of the bed, waiting. She must have heard enough. Or maybe she didn't need to hear anything at all. Some truths don't need words. Our eyes met. And for a brief moment, there was something fragile there. Not love. Not anymore. Just the ghost of what used to be. I can explain, she said softly. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. Everyone wants to explain once the damage is done, but explanations don't undo choices. They just decorate them. You don't need to, I replied. Her expression cracked. That wasn't the response she expected. You're not even going to ask me anything? She said, her voice trembling now. I shook my head. No. A pause. Long enough for the truth to settle in her chest. Why? She whispered. And that's when I said it. Because I already know everything that matters. The room felt smaller after that, like the walls themselves were closing in on what was left of us. She stood up, taking a step toward me. Regret was written all over her face now, but regret is always late. That's its nature. I made a mistake, she said. I looked at her, not with anger, not with pain, just with clarity. No, I corrected gently. You made a choice. That distinction broke something in her. I could see it, the weight of accountability settling in, not something she could cry her way out of, not something she could explain away. A choice. And choices have consequences. Behind me, I heard movement. He was leaving, quietly. No goodbye. No last attempt to defend himself. Just footsteps retreating from a place he should have never been in. The front door opened, then closed. And just like that, he was gone. But the damage he helped create? Still standing right in front of me. She sank back onto the bed, covering her face. Her shoulders shook as the reality finally caught up with her. This was the part people don't think about. Not the thrill, not the secrecy, but the aftermath, the collapse. I stood there for a moment longer, taking it all in. Not to torture myself, but to understand something important. This was the end. Not of me, not of my life, just of this chapter. And for the first time since I found out, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Because I wasn't losing anything anymore. I was letting go of something that had already been gone. I turned toward the door. And this time,
I didn't hesitate. I didn't raise my voice. That's what unsettled them the most. The room felt smaller now, the air thicker, like something invisible had crept in and was sitting between us at the table. He stopped chewing first. Then she noticed. Her eyes moved from him to me, then back again. A silent question passed between them, the kind only people with something to hide understand. I placed my cup down gently. A soft click, but it echoed. "You forgot something," I said. My tone was calm, too calm. Her brows pulled together. "What are you talking about?" I didn't answer immediately. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and slid it across the table. Face up. Unlocked. The screen lit the silence. His smile disappeared first. Hers followed. Messages, dozens of them. Dates, times, photos, proof. Undeniable, unfiltered, unforgiving. For a moment, no one spoke. Then she let out a small, broken breath. I can explain. Of course she could. They always can. I leaned back in my chair, studying them like strangers I had just met. "Go on," I said quietly. He shifted uncomfortably, wiping his hands on his trousers. The confidence he walked in with was gone now, replaced with something raw, something fragile. "This isn't what it looks like," he muttered. I almost laughed, but I didn't. Because this wasn't funny. This was precise, calculated. "And what does it look like?" I asked. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. She reached for my hand. I pulled it away before she could touch me. That hurt her more than anything I could have said. Tears welled up instantly. "Please, just listen." I listened. I cut in softly. "Every night you said you were tired. Every time you told me not to wait up. Every lie." Her lips trembled. "I believed you," I continued. "That's the worst part." He stood up suddenly. "Look, man, I didn't know. Sit down." I didn't raise my voice, but something in it made him obey. Slowly, reluctantly. "I didn't invite you here to argue," I said, my gaze locked onto his. "I invited you here so you could see what it feels like." He frowned slightly. "What?" I leaned forward. "Being comfortable while everything around you is about to collapse." That's when it hit him. Not fully, but enough. All his breathing changed. Her crying got louder. "I made you breakfast," I said, almost thoughtfully. "You sat in my house, ate my food, looked me in the eye." I paused, and thought I didn't know. The shame in the room was suffocating. She dropped her face into her hands, sobbing now. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I watched her, carefully, silently. "You're not sorry," I said. That made her look up, confused, broken. "You're just caught." That landed. Hard. He shifted again, restless. "Man, we can fix this." "No," I said simply. There was no anger in it, no hesitation. Just truth, and truth is heavier than rage. "You can't fix something you didn't break," I added. "You destroyed it." The clock on the wall ticked, louder now. Or maybe we were just finally hearing it. She slid off her chair, dropping to her knees beside me. Please, don't do this. We can talk. We can work through it." Her hands hovered near me again, but she didn't touch me this time. She already knew. There was nothing left to hold on to. I looked down at her, the woman I once loved, the woman I trusted, the woman I thought I knew, and I felt nothing. That scared me more than the betrayal. I already did, I said. Did what? She whispered. I stood up, slowly, deliberately. I worked through it. I reached for my jacket. The silence didn't come all at once. It crept in, slowly, like a fog swallowing everything that used to feel familiar. At first, there was noise. Her voice, sharp, defensive, breaking at the edges. That's not true! He's lying! Tell him! His voice panicked, desperate, unraveling. She told me you were done! She said you didn't even touch her anymore! Two people who once whispered secrets in the dark now threw them like knives in the light. And me? I just sat there, watching, not reacting, not interrupting, just observing the collapse. Because this was the moment I had already lived 100 times in my head. Only now, it was real, raw, uncontrolled, and far uglier than either of them imagined. She turned to me first. Of course she did. Tears already spilling, hands shaking, voice softening into something fragile. Rehearsed. Please, you don't understand. It wasn't like that. I tilted my head slightly, not out of confusion, but curiosity. Because now, I wanted to hear how far she'd go. How was it then? I asked quietly. That question hit her harder than any accusation. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at him, then back at me. And in that split second, I saw it. The calculation. Who do I save? Who do I blame? He made the choice for her. She told me you were controlling, he said quickly, stepping forward. That you barely spoke. That you were already separated in everything but name. Her head snapped toward him. What? You said that. I never said that. You literally cried in my car saying he ignores you. That's not the same thing. Oh, so now it's different? Their voices climbed over each other. Messy, desperate, contradicting. Yes, and with every word, the illusion they built together started to rot from the inside. I didn't need to say anything anymore. They were doing the work for me. Every lie, every excuse, every carefully constructed version of how it happened was collapsing under the weight of truth. Not my truth, theirs. She broke first, not loudly, not dramatically, just visibly. Her shoulders dropped. Her voice softened. Her fight disappeared. She sank into the chair like something inside her finally gave up pretending. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. And for a moment, just a moment, there was something real in her voice. Not manipulation, not defense, just regret. He didn't get that moment. His world collapsed differently, not inward, outward. His phone buzzed, again and again, notifications stacking, calls coming in. Yet because I hadn't just brought truth to this room, I'd brought it to his entire life. His girlfriend, his friends, his carefully curated image. All of it exposed. He stared at his screen like it was betraying him. Bro, what did you do? He muttered under his breath. I almost smiled, because this was the part people don't understand. Revenge isn't loud. It doesn't always look like shouting, or breaking things, or dramatic exits. Sometimes it's just truth, placed carefully, in the right places, at the right time. And then you step back and let it do what it always does. Destroy everything built on lies. She started crying harder now. Not for me. Not even for us. But for what she was losing. The comfort, the stability, the version of life she thought she could keep while living another in secret. "I'm sorry," she said again, barely audible. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No anger, no heartbreak, no urge to fix it, just clarity. He was pacing now, running his hands through his hair, trying to call someone. Anyone? But no one was picking up, because consequences don't arrive politely. They crash in, uninvited, unstoppable. I stood up. That was the moment everything paused. Both of them looked at me, waiting, hoping, maybe even expecting. A reaction. An explosion. Something. But I gave them neither. I just nodded once, not in agreement, not in forgiveness, just acknowledgement. "It's done," I said calmly. And that sentence landed heavier than anything else that had been said all morning. No shouting, no final argument, no dramatic closure, just an ending, clean, quiet, absolute. As I walked toward the door, her voice followed me, small, broken. "Is that it?" I stopped, hand on the handle, but I didn't turn around, because some things don't need one last look. "Yeah," I said, and then I left. 12. Final walk away. Strong, memorable ending. The air outside felt different, not fresher, not lighter, just real, for the first time in a long time. I stood there for a moment, not because I didn't know where to go, but because I realized something strange. I wasn't in a rush anymore, not to fix anything, not to understand anything, not to hold on to anything. Behind that door was everything I used to call my life, the house, the memories, the routine, the version of love I thought was real. And just like that, it wasn't mine anymore. I walked to my car slowly, every step deliberate, not heavy, not hesitant, just final. People think the hardest part is finding out. The betrayal, the lies, the moment everything breaks. But it's not. The hardest part is accepting that what you thought was permanent was never real to begin with. I sat in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel. And for a second, I let the silence sit with me. No music, no distractions, just my thoughts. Oh, and surprisingly, they weren't chaotic, they weren't angry, they weren't even sad, they were more clear, because I finally understood something most people don't. I didn't lose anything. I didn't lose her, I didn't lose the relationship, I didn't lose us, because you can't lose something. That was never truly yours. What I lost was an illusion, and what I gained was the truth. I exhaled slowly, started the engine, and as the car pulled away, I didn't look back. Not at the house, not at the past, not at anything that tried to break me. Because walking away isn't weakness. It's control, it's choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, self-respect over kib-attachment. They thought they got away with it. They thought I was blind, asleep, unaware. But the truth is, I was there the whole time, watching. The end. Kindly subscribe and follow for more stories like this.